Hey guys, today we're in Frankfort, Kentucky, the capital of Kentucky, and we're looking for one of the most famous residents of Frankfort, Kentucky, that being the lovely Miss Elizabeth.
Miss Elizabeth, First Lady of the Ring. You made the chaos feel like something. You were the calm in the crash and clang, soft-spoken queen of the square stage. Miss Elizabeth, you showed the world how I can look like a gentle girl. You turned the pain into poetry. That's why you still matter to me.
And look at all this stuff at the Capital City Museum, Frankfort, Kentucky. All this memorabilia and merchandise of the lovely Miss Elizabeth. Here you can see that it says Miss Elizabeth started off here as a high school majorette in the band. And above that, they have her school jacket, actual school jacket of Miss Elizabeth. And while in Frankfort, Kentucky, Miss Elizabeth met the one and only Randy Poffo. And you might know him better by his wrestling name, the Macho Man, Randy Savage. And it was on an episode of WWF television that Miss Elizabeth made her debut in the world of professional wrestling, as all these managers were fighting over who was going to be the manager of the Macho Man, Randy Savage, when all of a sudden, out of the door, came this woman right here, who they said looked like a movie star. She ended up being Miss Elizabeth, and of course, she became the Macho Man, Randy Savage's manager. And to me, this is the holy grail here at the Capital City Museum, Miss Elizabeth's necklace from WrestleMania 3, which many consider to be the greatest wrestling match of all time. And look at this, guys. Here it is. Miss Elizabeth's actual WrestleMania 3 worn diamond necklace. Look at that. It's still shiny. Looks brand new. But how awesome is that? That is actual history right there. One of the greatest matches, maybe the greatest match of all time. And after WrestleMania 3, Macho Man Randy Savage became one of the most popular wrestlers in the WWF. And a lot of that was contributed by one Miss Elizabeth. A lot of people would say that maybe the Macho Man Randy Savage's popularity really stemmed from the fact that his manager was Miss Elizabeth. Of course, he would go on to team with Hulk Hogan and become the Mega Powers. And you can see here Miss Elizabeth is on some of these magazines that they've got on the wall here. Of course, that one is one I remember. And over here, we have the split between the Mega Powers, Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, and in between it all was the lovely Miss Elizabeth. Some more old magazines here of Miss Elizabeth and Randy Savage on the cover. Of course, just like basketball, baseball, and football, wrestling also had sports cards. You can see that one signed by Miss Elizabeth. Look at this shirt. This shirt is awesome. Look at all this cool 80s merchandise here. You got a nice watch. Looks like an LJN watch, maybe. You got some of these old styled cups with Miss Elizabeth. Of course, they made a lot of cups like this back in the 80s. I don't know what the deal was, but everybody loved these for some reason. And as Miss Elizabeth became more popular, the storyline was that Randy Macho Man Savage was jealous, and he believed that Hulk Hogan had lust in his eyes for Miss Elizabeth. And this right here is the storyline that got me in to professional wrestling. It was Randy Macho Man Savage versus Hulk Hogan. The Mega Powers exploded, and Miss Elizabeth was right there in the middle. And August 26, 1991, the Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth got back together and they got married in the match made in heaven, which I remember because it was my birthday. And I actually do have some of Miss Elizabeth's ring worn dresses here. So let's check this out. We've got the orange one here from, looks like about 1992. All right, guys, here it is. Her actual dress. Look at that. It's pretty cool to see in person. Actual ring worn dress of Miss Elizabeth. We've got a second one here. This is also looking like 1992. And Miss Elizabeth's pink dress here. Of course, pictured with the Macho Man Randy Savage. And here is the actual dress, the pink dress of Miss Elizabeth. It's all shiny. Look at that. Pretty cool. And it seemed like in the mid 90s, everybody from the WWF ended up in WCW. And Miss Elizabeth was no exception. As you can see here, WCW, you've got Miss Elizabeth, Hulk Hogan, and Randy Macho Man Savage back together again. And of course, everyone also seemed to join the NWO back in the late 90s. So Miss Elizabeth jumped on board and became evil Miss Elizabeth. You got a little bit of NWO merchandise here. You got a little die-cast car or something, and then a bigger die-cast car. And then you got this pink bear, which does not go at all with the NWO. And if Miss Elizabeth's gonna go bad, she's gonna have to wear a leather jacket. And as you can see here, they do have 4 of Miss Elizabeth's leather jackets from the late 1990s. And I actually saw Miss Elizabeth wearing one of these back in 98. And that's pretty cool. They still got them. I mean, they look really well kept. Like, no damage or anything. Pretty cool looking. Unfortunately, Miss Elizabeth's story does not have a happy ending. She, in 2003, was in the home of Lex Luger, and she overdosed and sadly passed away. But her legacy will continue to go on. I don't think anybody's ever going to forget about Miss Elizabeth. And that's why I'm really happy about this museum here, because it really tells her story. So if you haven't got out to see this, I encourage you to. And it's not going to end on a sad note, because Miss Elizabeth is remembered through all of these WWE merchandise. I actually have one of these in my house, and they continue to make Miss Elizabeth merchandise even still to this day. You can go and purchase one of these. So she's not forgotten. And here in the Frankfort, Kentucky cemetery is the final resting place of Miss Elizabeth, Elizabeth Ann Hewlett. While this has nothing to do with the lovely Miss Elizabeth, Frankfort, Kentucky cemetery also has one of the most famous residents here by the name of Daniel Boone. And right here in the Frankfort cemetery is the man himself, the world famous Daniel Boone. And this is a really good view right here. It is the viewpoint next to the grave of Daniel Boone, looking over the entire city of Frankfort, Kentucky. This is kind of a weird place to end this video, but that's where we're at, so that's what we're going to do. Thanks for joining me today on my travels. Hopefully, if you like this video and you want to see more of them, every single Thursday I post a new video right here on the Big Chris Film channel. So that means you need to like it, subscribe, and keep checking back. And I'll see you at the next stop. Tulip tree. Yeah, it's a tulip tree.